Welcome to the Paradigm Giving Archives a Second Life Through Digitization webinar. We have scheduled an hour and a half for this. If there are no questions at the end, obviously we will not sit here for that amount of time. We will cut it short and give you some time back. I'm going to do a quick introduction of who we are. Next slide, please. So I'm Eric Marcos-Sobota. I'm the head of marketing and communications at Paradigm. I'm joined here by my colleague Saskia Wenzel, who is the director of operations, who many of you, if you are partners, will know, and also my indirect colleague Katinka Brathvold, who's the director of rights and licenses for discoverable, and she will be able to speak to us a bit about the practical applications of what we do at Paradigm in terms of digitization. Next slide, please. So just some quick information about Paradigm. We're the publishing services division of discoverable. We operate semi-autonomously, so our customers include discoverable, but also a number of university presses and journals and academic institutions. And we provide systems for bear with me, something is going wrong here. Okay, there we go. Now I'm back. We partner with independent and for-profit and not-for-profit academic publishers, libraries, and editors and researchers worldwide. And our goal is to promote small publishers, help preserve their independence, especially their editorial independence, and to help keep them financially stable, all the while boosting their visibility and success. Next slide, please. These are our main customers. They can be divided into three general groups, so librarians, and we provide access and collection solutions, publishers and societies for publishing infrastructure and global distribution, and finally, editors and researchers. We provide publishing and distribution services for them as well. Next slide, please. We're based in Boston, London, and Warsaw. A few of us at Paradigm are also in Berlin. The vast majority are remote workers. And with that, I will hand it over to Saskia Wenzel, who will talk a bit more about the meat of this webinar. So Saskia, over to you.
Thanks, Eric. So one of the services that we provide to publishers in particular is digitization services, where we digitize print materials that the publishers have or maybe have not. And in those cases, we help them source it. And we digitize them so that they are turned into accessible digital formats, which are PDFs and EPUBs. We do this for their complete and deep backlist. So we try and go back as far as possible. And it helps our publishers to extend, as it says here, their usability, visibility, and also the long-term value of their cultural heritage. Next slide, please. So the digitization for us is more than just preserving the content. It also is a way of making the content accessible again globally for all global audiences, and also discoverable through enhanced metadata. We know from previous projects that we've done for publishers, for publisher partners, as well as for our own archive at discoverable and also the archive of Brill, that all the backlist titles that we've digitized have remained relevant for the ongoing research. We see that through the demand that we have for the backlist content in terms of usage and also sales. And no matter what the historical context for the of the digitized books and materials is, we see that they provide context for the fields that they were published in, and also in the wider sense of scientific, the history of science as a whole. There is also it's also often the case that most of the materials that we digitize, especially when they are very old, are unique, so they are not available anywhere else, especially they're not available in digital format. So this is often the case that we make the content available for the first time to global audiences digitally. What we like to say is out of print is out of date through the digitization of this content. And those are mainly the big advantages of digitizing the legacy content of our publishers. On the right-hand side, as you can see, the limited access that print material has, the restricted discoverability in terms of the metadata that is available for materials, and also the risk of the actual physical material deteriorating is met by just making the content available in digital format again. Next slide, please. Yeah, there are also some impacts, not just for the publishers that we work with, but also for the institutions that we can provide access to through digitization. It enhances the space efficiency, so there is less reliance on the physical storage of the books on the shelves in the libraries or at other institutions. It is a very good means of collection development for the institutions, also, for example, through not just through generally expanding the existing collections, but also through the through gap filling of, for instance, book series. And as I mentioned, all of the books that we digitized get new metadata records. In many cases, we're able to enhance the metadata records for the books that we digitize. And that, of course, improves the discoverability and for all of these materials in the 21st century. Next slide, please. Yeah. Those are, sorry, we're not seeing the slides anymore.
Do you want to talk about the conference right now or at the end?
The conferences. Okay, you want to? Okay, we can mention the conferences at the end.
Okay, so I think that's over to you and Katinka. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and with me here today is Katinka Radwald, who Eric introduced as our Director of Rights and Licenses for the Groote Bril. And I have the pleasure of talking to Katinka about the Brill book archive that she helped digitize. Yeah, I'd like to start with my first question to Katinka. Are you ready, Katinka?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Yeah, just a very general opening question, maybe. Can you tell us a little bit about the Brill book archive and what motivation Brill had to digitize its archive? Would you say it was more of a defensive move of preservation, or was it an offensive one to generate new revenue streams?
So the disclaimer here is that I joined Brill end of 2022 when the first part of the archive was launched and digitized. So that was the Brill Book Archive 1, which spanned from 2000 to 2006, because as of 2006, Brill published all their books as ebooks as well. So when I joined, the Brill Book Archive was out there, and the Brill Book Archive 2 was just being worked on, and I think it was an offensive move. It was there to see how can we monetize our deep backlists, keeping in mind that Brill is a publisher with a history back to 1673. We obviously have a very, very deep backlist, and how could we potentially monetize on that? And that was the reason for it. There was a business case that was produced that was before my time, and out of that business case came that we thought it was a reason to digitize it, but also I think also a deep wish to have all of those books. Mind you, that Brill in the old days used to have a storage, used to have its own printer, but back in the days when they once moved, they got rid of all of the stock. So we didn't actually have a copy of the books that we'd published in the past. We didn't have it anymore.
Can you maybe elaborate a little bit about the cost of publishing? Because most publishers, smaller and larger alike, need to justify the cost of large-scale digitization projects. So can you maybe speak a little bit about the monetization strategies that you had or that Brill has for the book archive?
I think the biggest cost in a digitization project is actually digitizing the content. And we've done that in 2 different ways, or 3 different ways, actually. For the Brill Book Archive 1, we actually had the print files for a large number of books. If you've got the print files, it's a very easy conversion. We scanned books, both destructively and non-destructively. The vast majority was scanned non-destructively because we borrowed books from partner libraries. For us, that was the Royal Library, the Royal Dutch Library in Den Haag. It was the Library of the Peace Palace in Den Haag, Amsterdam University Library, and a big chunk of the books have been borrowed from the Leiden University, and they obviously wanted these books back. So just the production cost of having the books scanned, having them produced. We actually also bought some of the books secondhand because at one time we actually thought, well, you know what, this is actually not moving with the speed we wanted to move. And I had a staff member at the time, and I jokingly said that she was head of purchasing because she was looking at all of the secondhand books shops in the Netherlands and trying to find the books that we were missing, and primarily trying to find those that were really old because we thought those will be more difficult to lend from libraries. So that's where the cost is, having books scanned. Also, I have to add that once we'd bought those books that we meant to scan destructively, we just couldn't bear with the thought, because some of these books were so beautiful. They had like a leather, binding, everything. So we just decided to keep them all and to have them non-destructively scanned. But that's the biggest cost, and also having them, obviously made into an ebook file. One which is, you can index, you can search, etc. There's also a cost attached to that.
Yeah, of course. But did this strategy or also the workload behind it create any bias in what gets digitized or what got left behind? For example, have there been cases where digitization did not make financial sense to you?
I did not look at the books when we decided which one to digitize. I think out of the deep backlist, we had identified more than 14,000 books for the BBA2. So that's the period that goes from 1999 and back to 1673. We knew we had approximately a bit more. We had more than 14,000 books. There was a rights check that was done, with some of these having illustrations, etc. We decided not to digitize some of the previous imprints. And then it was actually that the strategy was whatever we can try and get our hands on. But I did have some I thought I was done now. And then I had an email from Leiden, and they'd found a series from 1870 of 6 books. And they said, you still want to digitize them? And I couldn't say no. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, an archive is never really complete, is it?
No,
right?
no, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of completeness, what role does completeness play for the Brill Book Archive and the digitization project as a whole? Or you also mentioned book series.
Yeah. So we I think that's one of the benefits that we see now, that Brill has a number of book series that goes back very far, right? So maybe only volume 50 till 60 was as an ebook, and now we've been able to digitize 1 till 50. So I think that's one of the advantages. Another advantage is that these books are now on there as ebooks. We chose as a little bit of a defensive move. We thought that we're not going to be able to find all of these 14,000 books. So we decided to say, once we reach approximately 11,200, that's it. We will not be able to find all of these books. We've actually exceeded that number now slightly, so it will be slightly bigger. And I'm not saying that we won't, pick it up again and maybe digitize more. But this is what we've been able to find so far. And we know it's not complete, which is, kind of an unsatisfactory feeling partly, but also I think it will be kind of an ongoing search because we really searched hard. I joined in November 2022, and we're now for those 11,300, which we're at now, we're 80 books short of being complete. 80 books. But that's work that's been going on for 3.5 years. So it's just a matter of when do you say it's complete, and then when do you decide to pick it up again,
or just acknowledging
or not.
Acknowledging that it's probably never going to be 100% complete, especially with a publishing house that is so old. But speaking of, or you mentioned how old Brill is. What other returns on investment besides the money can your archive offer for you and your users? In terms of heritage, for example, or the accessibility of the content?
Yeah, I think accessibility is one of them. These books, where most of them were only available as part of a special collection in the library somewhere, they needed to be gotten out of, picked up out of an archive. Students couldn't borrow them. They weren't accessible for tools like text to speech. They were only available in those libraries that had actually bought the book and kept them at the time. And now they're available to anyone who's bought the Brill Book Archive package. So they are no longer just in a very few libraries all over the world, but they can be purchased also as single ebooks. We include them in our EBA packages. They can be bought perpetually with perpetual access as part of the Brill Book Archive. And they're out there, and they're still, and we're primarily a humanities publisher, and I have to say that humanities tend to age quite okay, to be honest. Mind you, the two subject collections that we struggled most with sourcing for was biology and international law. I think both subjects that don't age as well as other more humanities subjects.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you say in which formats the books are now available?
They're now all available as ebooks, as PDF. Brill don't have a history of publishing an EPUB. That may change in the future, I don't know, but they're all available now as EPUBs on brill.com. Yeah.
As PDFs, yeah.
Yes, as PDFs.
Yeah. And out of curiosity, because you mentioned that before, the print books that you were not able to destroy, what did you do with them afterwards?
So I have a few in my office, and we've put a few elsewhere in the office. I actually shipped some off to our Boston office so that they could use them when they go to book fairs. We have a few downstairs in the reception area. So they're everywhere in the building and also elsewhere. Yeah, that's what we did with them.
Okay. So they still have their second life, so to say.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've got a few laying over there on one of my furnitures here in the office. Yeah.
Changing the topic a little bit, with the books being available in PDF format now, what do you think? How will AI and large language models that are crawling all of our websites reshape the value of the digitized archive and its metadata, maybe?
I think one of the benefits that's come with AI and the big language learning models is that you can actually also monetize within those models for those books. So it deepens your backlist. If you if Brill only had 20,000 books in the past, we've now extended our backlist when it comes to ebooks extensively, right? So it also expands on the opportunity to monetize it, whether it is selling it in perpetuality, whether it's having someone included them in an EBA, or whether it is licensing them out for AI use. It just expands on your potential to earn money. Yeah.
Mm. And one thing that I've also heard recently is that there are platforms that are also building in AI tools into their own search, so that the results that users are getting on the platform are more curated.
Yeah.
I think that's also
So
an interesting thing.
some of the vendors that we are working with are starting to do that now. I think it's called the MCP protocols. So I think that's moving very fast, but it will mean that users using AI tools will be directed to whatever the library is subscribing to. So potentially also our content. Yeah.
Coming back to the workflows of digitizing the archive, we already know that metadata quality is probably equally important as the content itself, but they both come with their very distinct challenges. So what did you see as the biggest sort of technical challenge in digitizing your print archive?
I think what they had done before I joined was to use metadata from the Royal Library in Den Haag together with metadata from WorldCat, and they'd kind of combined this and they'd gotten some kind of truth of this is Brill's backlist. We had put it into the system as a kind of a bare minimum with metadata, and what we did do, so we used the method kind of book in hand. So once we digitized it, when we were able to borrow it, we digitized it, and when the ebook came back from our digitization partner, I had someone working for me who actually just looked up every single book and then enhanced the metadata and corrected it as well. Sometimes we'd gotten their last name wrong. Sometimes it was the year of the publication, or we had managed to get a different edition than what we'd originally thought of. So we did all of the corrections with the kind of book on screen once it came back and before it went live. That was our double check before everything went live. It is very hands-on. An archive production is extremely hands-on. Yeah.
Yeah, and that must have been very time consuming, no?
It was very time consuming. I had someone working on the Brill Book Archive for 2 years, just checking the books that came in, making sure that the books that we'd bought, for instance, sometimes the pages were cut. No, they weren't cut, so we got them in, and the pages still needed to be cut. So I brought in my kitchen knives for us to cut them before we sent them off for the scanning. Sometimes they had marks in them from pencils or paper, so we sat down and we erased it with with erasers. So there is a lot of hands-on work, and we did it all internally. So it was very hands-on. There is a lot more that comes to it than what you would originally think, that this is all things that you will have to do.
Yeah, but apart from the people that were involved in the project at Brill and the libraries, who else did you work with?
We worked with a scanning partner here in the Netherlands who scanned for us. We worked with a partner who produced the ebook files for us. And now for the last almost year, I think, Paradigm has helped us kind of tidy up the last loose ends. But within the first 2.5 years, it was the scanning partner, it was the partner creating the ebook file and the libraries, and it was my team. And also, obviously other colleagues like the platform team who helped load the books every week, and a few others internally. But it was me and my little project team mainly running it.
What would you say, how much time did you spend just setting up the workflows themselves? before you could actually get started?
Yeah, I think the workflow, the basic one was set up before I joined. I did spend quite a bit of time on refining them, because we ran into issues where we noticed that data didn't come in, so we set up a process where we double checked books that we had sent and then gotten in, because it turned out to be a data issue. So I kept on refining the processes the whole time because it was just the way you learn. You learn and you do. We didn't realize in the beginning that when we requested one book from the KB, they actually gave us all the books in a set. So it took some time before we read. So there was just a lot of learning moments throughout the period, I would say. Yeah.
And in terms of learning, did you experience any sort of learning or copyright challenges when you digitized the older works, and how did you handle them?
I think we've had we had someone check the rights prior to this, but there is obviously a limit for when you say there is no copyright or books that are out of copyright. There is also limits to when how did our contracts look in the past. I think we've taken the approach that we've digitized what we think we can digitize. If someone has not been happy with it, and I think to my honesty, it's happened. I can count them on one hand. We've taken the book down, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that we did for De Gruyter, maybe just as a sort of side note here, is that we've offered authors that retroactively contacted us about their books being digitized. We offered them contracts, and we've had a few authors sign those contracts because they were quite happy that their content was out there again in a digital form. Looking back at the two projects for Brill, the BBA1 and the BBA2 generally, what do you think, what role did the wider environment of libraries, universities, and tech companies play in your digitization efforts, both in terms of the workflow, but also for the return on investment?
I think it kind of felt like a little bit of a solo project. It was done out of we want to do this. And I think we launched our packages at the same time as a few others, or I think we were slightly later than De Gruyter did. Mind you, we were two independent publishers at the time. I'm not sure how much the bigger environment, how much that counted when they first decided to launch the archive. I think now, at the completion, when I can say we're lacking 80 books out of 4,000 for Brill Book Archive 1 and more than 11,000, almost 300 for the Book Archive 2. It just feels like it enhances the history that we have. And I think it feels more complete as, being able to go to customers to say, look, this is us with a very long history and a very long and deep backlist, and it's all electronically, and it's setting us up for, I would say, success for the future as well.
Would you say that you did the archive digitization at the right time, or would you say we probably could have done it a little earlier, or maybe we should have waited a little?
No, I think Brill did it at the good time. We didn't have any partner at the time, so we didn't have anyone to ask for their experience or how did you handle it. We just went along and we found, our workflows and how to do it on the way, which is maybe why it's taken longer than it was originally anticipated. But I think we did it at the right time. Definitely. Yeah. I'm not sure we could have done it earlier. And now we're coming to an end. I'm just glad it's done. Yeah.
If it's ever going to be done completely.
Yeah.
Right. But it's good to have an archive, and it's I guess it's also from the experiences that we've made with the De Gruyter archive and also the other archives that we've digitized. It's also very satisfying to have done that project, to now be able to say, okay, we have done our due diligence of digitizing and making sure that we're preserving our heritage and we're making it available to everyone. Maybe one last question that is a little bit related to that, but do you feel that you need to future-proof the value of your archive in any way?
To future-proof it? What do you mean with future-proofing it? Do you mean as in
terms of the formats or the way it's being hosted, the way it's being offered?
I think if the technicality, if technical arrangements change, we may need to do so, because we're now only published in PDF. We don't do EPUBs. There is an accessibility issue here, and that may happen. I think one of the best things with the merger between De Gruyter and Brill is that now actually the company is so much bigger, and we have our own metadata and processes department who are really on top of this, and who will look at that and who can action that. I think we digitized all of the content more or less before the new Accessibility Act came in place, which means something. I'm sure there is metadata that could be enhanced as we go along. I'm not convinced. We've done what we could do with the metadata. That's obviously something that can be worked on. I'm not a metadata expert by far means, so I'm pretty sure that we could potentially, build on it and go further on it. I don't think many of them are in our POD program. That's obviously a different revenue stream if someone would want to buy these books as print. So that's another discussion to be had internally. Do we want to have these available for POD in the future? Maybe, that's again a different department who is to decide on that. But, that's another revenue stream that we could open up for.
Yeah, it's one that we have for the De Gruyter archive, I can say.
Yeah.
Most of the publisher partner archives that we've digitized are making POD available as well, and it's astonishing to see how much demand there still is for print volumes among individual users, but also institutional customers who would like to complete book series that they just have on shelf, and they want to have them all in print on shelf, for example.
Yeah, so yes, if you think that, I by no means do I think that we've come to the end of the BBA2, although we might have finished, digitizing for now. Maybe now it's time to look at those things and to develop the collection further.
But at least you have something to work off on.
Yes.
So you have the files at hand now.
Yeah, we've got the files. Maybe in the future, someone will decide, let's try to source a bit more. Let's try to make the set even more complete. Because when I set the number of maximum titles, it was very, very arbitrary. It was just, we looked up the books, we couldn't find everything. In WorldCat, we couldn't find that there were somewhere. And we deducted 17% of the total list, and to say, look, that's going to be our full list then, because we cannot start selling a collection that we won't be able to fill. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm at the end of my questions actually, but I see that there were some in the chat already.
Mm-hmm.
So
there were.
Maybe we can talk about these, and if we come to the end of these questions, I do have some optional follow-up questions as well.
Great. So should we go to the ones that came from the audience?
Yes.
Okay, the first question is, might have already been answered, is does the fact that today we don't necessarily know what content is going to be of interest to researchers in the future, does that play a role in this attempt at least to get us close to 100% of digitizing a full archive? Does that motivate, let's say, the people that are searching for the books? Does that play any role with, oh, this might be useful in the future, so we really should try to get it, even if we don't have the physical book to scan right now?
I think definitely, because I cannot judge now which books will be of interest later on, and I think we've chosen to scan whatever we got our hands on. I think it was mentioned briefly by Saskia in the beginning as well, that we have a disclaimer out on the website saying that some of the books in the Brill Book Archive don't by any means reflect the opinions or the meaning of the publishing house now, but they do reflect the meaning and the way things were seen at the time being. And I think that makes it even more important for the sake of history to digitize these books, because it tells you something about how people were thinking about things and how things have changed. So I do feel it is important to have it complete. But we decided to go here now, and then potentially there will be a decision to try and get it as complete as possible in the future. Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I think we call sensitive. We started calling sensitive content in the De Gruyter archive. So content where you said, okay, this is not the way we would publish academic content nowadays. This is not usually the type of content that we would now publish. But so what you were saying is you would not recommend self-censoring yourself at all with the content that was published in the past.
I think really that's honestly my personal opinion. So I don't feel like I don't talk for the Gruyter Brill here, but my personal opinion is that once you start self-censoring, you also try to make it look like this was not part of the past. I think that's even more important. But that's really, really my personal opinion. But also, I had to take a few decisions where it was said, should we digitize this book? And I said, yes, we should, because it tells you. If not, I feel it's trying to alter the history by only digitizing those books that we feel now, make us look good or whatever. I don't feel that's right. It's really my personal opinion.
No, I had that with another digitization project before De Gruyter, Brill and Paradigm, where there was a lot of sensitive things that were published during the early 20th century in German, and there was a very big discussion about should this be made available, and is some of it so sensitive that we don't want to self-censor. We will digitize it, but we will have controls in place to make sure that they're researchers who are really studying this and not members of the public that may want to misconstrue or use the information for non-scientific purposes, shall we say. But I think I agree with you too as well, Katinka, is we can't be seen, certainly not as Paradigm, which is simply a publishing, a services provider. But I think, trying to alter what happened, it always comes out at some point, and it doesn't look good if you've tried to pretend things didn't.
Yeah, and one thing to add, maybe it's also extremely difficult to find out in the long lists or the vast, just the amount of content that you're digitizing or that you have digitized, that we are digitizing. It's extremely difficult to find out if there is any sensitive content in there, and where do you draw the line? What is still okay and what is not? It's very difficult to draw that line. And it doesn't only concern content that was published in the early 19th, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, maybe sometimes. We've seen content in the De Gruyter archive up until the 70s that you would probably not publish anymore.
Yeah.
Also with American University Process, it's the same. It goes on until the 60s, the 70s.
Yeah. Okay, the second question we have is a question about finding what the priority is and not wasting time on indexing by Clarivate, for example, or what should be done at this stage so that we don't create a negative effect on the, I guess, academic community. I hope I got that right. So I gather that it's a question on how to make sure we get the most important things. If we have an archive, is there any way? I mean, again, we don't know what researchers of the future will be interested in, but you know, if you have an archive with material from a well-known scientist or something like that, that we will assume is important because of the sort of reputation he or she has. How do you do that? Is it a crapshoot? I mean, you just don't know if you're wasting your time based on the fact that we don't know the future, or are there guidelines of how to figure out this is really valuable or could be really valuable already now?
I don't know. I don't think we feel that. I think I would just want to know then, like indexing by Clarivate, do you mean indexing in one of their discovery services like Ex Libris? I would say that's not costing us any extra effort because all of the metadata is just going out all, with, the regular KBOTs, with the MARC records are going out. Everything is just following our normal processes for metadata. So we're not doing anything extra to have this indexed, whether it is with OCLC or Clarivate. It just follows the normal workflow. So that's not where any extra effort is. I would say any extra effort has been from the marketing department. It's been actually in the digitization process and getting the metadata correct. And the extra amount of books going live. At Brill, we had one person loading ebooks every week, and for her, it was the regular level of front list titles that she had to push through every week. But on top of that, it could be as many as 100 or 150 BBA titles at the most. So it increased the workload for those internally, for those practical things, I would say. But for external partners, it will just follow the workflow.
Okay. Another question is, it says our company put all the published papers on various platforms similar to archiving. So why do we need another one?
I think when I think of an archive, I think of a dark archive. Yeah. I think of someone that you pay to store your books just in case something happens and the publishing company will not be there anymore. This is actually just monetizing your backlist. Yeah. This is digitizing it to be able, and these are not books that were digitally available as an archive file previous to this. So yes, this file can now be monetized, but it can also be sent to a digital archive. And we're only talking, just for the clarity, we're only talking about books here. We've not digitized any journals archives. It's all about books. Yeah.
Okay. Saskia, you mentioned you had some follow-up questions because the official questions from our participants are up. There might be a few that come in. But why don't you go ahead and ask your follow-up questions?
My follow-up question was actually around the sensitive content, which was then asked. So I think we discussed that at length. That's great. I had another question around the copyright the copyright. So would you say that the digitization helped also clarify rights ownership of the books, or did you see it as you mentioned you didn't have a lot of people come back to you asking for their books to be pulled. So what would you say, what was the legal risk of doing it the way you did it?
Yeah, I don't think by no means we've tried to run a big legal risk here. You may know that, Brill has had a few imprints that's been where there's been loads of illustrations, for instance, and we excluded those imprints because we knew that could cause action, and also a few series where we knew that it could cause discussion. I think as a general rule, this opens up a different revenue stream for those authors. So they are getting the same revenue share for those ebooks. They're getting revenue now from the ebooks and not only from the print, which would have been out of print. So it's, additional revenue. Yeah, and we haven't had, but your question was copyright. We've had one handful, and I think we can count them on one hand, of people who's come to us and said, I don't want my book to be published as an ebook. And we've pulled those books, and that's been it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no questions asked, no discussion. That's it. You don't want it, that's it.
Yeah, okay, so you're not going into discussions with the authors. If they don't want it, they don't want it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's their work.
We have another question from participants. And first of all, I would like to say to Emanuela, nobody on this panel is a native English speaker, so don't worry about your English. The question is, I would like to know how you choose which books are digitized in an archive. And then something for the experts, second metadata in MARC 21 or which standard?
So I think for the choice of which books to digitize, and it's going to sound horrible, we digitized those that we could find because it was difficult. It was difficult having to go back to 1683. So we just started looking, and we partnered with the Royal Library very early. We combined their catalogue. We looked at their whole catalogue. We saw what they had. We checked for all potential books that we could find. And we had batches of 200 books that we borrowed at a time. And we had this kind of train that was going every 4 weeks. So every 4 weeks, our partner would pick up 200 books. They were scanned, and 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, they gave those 200 books back, and they picked up another 200 books. So we literally scanned everything that they had at the Royal Library. At the same time, we checked what they had in Amsterdam and at the Peace Palace, which scanned everything they had at the Peace Palace that belonged to us. And the last one we scanned now is being Leiden, and we've scanned every single book that they had, that they were willing to lend us, which I think is almost been 99% of what they had in stock of our books. So that the choice was also, and then we bought, I think we ended up buying like 500 books in the end. So that was how we made the choice. I think going back, we will potentially go back and look, okay, do we, if there is a series where we miss one book, do we want to try to make extra effort to find that book? So, the true choice is, which may not be the most beautiful answer, is we didn't make a choice. We just looked for what we could find. And you have to know that when I joined, had to look for 8,500 books, and that's a lot. Yeah.
We also I remember on the we'll get to the metadata question in a second, but when we were doing the DeGruyter book archives several years ago, I remember I went to the house of the last granddaughter of Walter de Gruyter. She had passed away, and we went through her entire library and found books that we didn't have in the de Gruyter archive. So I remember getting up on ladders myself and pulling these books, anything that had a logo of all of the companies that made up De Gruyter over the centuries. And yeah, people are very enthusiastic about these things. That people that work on digitization, I mean, all of us are kind of nuts about this. So
yeah,
but anyway,
we've scanned books. That's like one of the books that we scanned is The Private Property of Maurits van Bogert, our managing director. He had one of the very oldest books on Islam because that's what his academic background is. So we've scanned employees' personal book lists here, bookcases here as well. I'm sorry, Eric.
No. The second part of Emanuela's question was metadata. Is it in Mark 21 or what standard is used when the metadata is produced for the digitized books?
So, that's where my technical standard is, because we have MARC records. We had them externally created, and I think it was MARC 21.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's MARC 21 for us as well. But I have to say that metadata comes in a lot of different flavors. So MARC is just one of the flavors for institutional users or customers. But we also send out metadata in Onyx. So that's one other standard for the books, for the book content itself that is hosted online. There is also metadata on the chapter level created, which is also something that you usually never had before the digitization. That metadata is usually stored in bits format. And we always recommend when generating metadata, new metadata for a book in a digitization project, that there are certain things that every book record should have. BISEC codes, for example, or the copyright year, and a new publication date, for example. So if your book's published in digital format for the first time, then you should make sure that it has a new publication date, whereas the copyright year is, of course, the old copyright year when it was first published. So those are details that are not specific to a certain metadata standard, but they do play a role in when you generate new metadata for a digitized book.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Manuela. We have another question about adding too many costly processes. So obviously digitization isn't free. It's a lot of work, as we've just heard. But again, it does provide for opportunities of monetization. The question is, digitization might work for book series if you're digitizing archives, but adding all of the journals, that would be quite a bit more work. Is there any kind of, are we doing, is Paradigm doing any work on journals, or have we limited ourselves up to now to books?
Paradigm has done some journal digitizations for publisher partners in the past. Those digitization projects usually they work they're very similar to the book digitization projects, with the big exception that you don't create a separate record for each for each book. You only have one journal, and then you have the issues, the volumes and the issues. It is a lot of work, luckily, and because usually we didn't have, also for the De Gruyter book, for the De Gruyter journal archives, we didn't have the journals at hand either. So sourcing also plays a very big role in digitizing journals. But luckily, if you find a library that you can cooperate with, they usually have, if they have a journal archive, then they usually have a very big one. And that has helped us a lot in the digitization efforts there.
Okay. And then there's the final question is, or the last question is, the fact that copyright and intellectual property laws are different from one country to another. And did that create a problem during the digitizing process or later, both Katinka and Saskia?
All of those things were part of the initial vetting of which books to digitize. Was, how can we take that into consideration and staying within the rules that we have. So I think that was all taken into consideration in the pre-looking at the content. But I think it does slightly complicated, because you do as a publisher you absolutely want to stay within what you can do. And you can look into a number of things, and you try your best. So yes, that was definitely part. We had a freelance legal consultant looking into the copyright situation for the whole list. Obviously, you then have to look at things in chunks. So authors, countries, etc. But it was looked at by a freelancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see any more questions from participants. Are there any more follow-up questions from our panelists?
One thing that I'd be curious to talk about is looking back at the whole project now. Is there anything that you would, Katinka, is there anything that you would reconsider today that you would have done differently?
I think I wish it would take so long. So I searched on the internet. I was just before this webinar, I thought to myself, do I know enough? And I should have, because I've been working on this for 3 years. But I thought, do I know? And then I came across the press release from 2021 from our chief publishing officer at the time, saying that Brill is launching its book archive and it will be complete in 2023. And we're just completing now, and it's 2026. So I wish I knew it would take so long. I wish I knew it would be this much work. It's been more rewarding and more, fun than I thought. 2 years ago, I transitioned into a new role as director of rights and licenses for the new merged company, De Gruyter Brill. But I took with me this project, so it was kind of inherited from my previous role as a program manager for books. So it's been challenging having to manage everything at the same time whilst having moved into a new role. I wish I knew it would take so long, and at the same time, I wish it was a lot learning by doing. And I think when after the merger with the Gruyter, I met with the Paradigm team, Saskia, and it was the first time ever I spoke to someone who was dealing with exactly the same challenges as I was dealing with. Because it's a little bit of, you're the only one here. So I think just it would have helped if I'd had some knowledge. And I've had publishers get in touch afterwards to say, do you mind if you tell me a little bit about your experience and how you learned? And I think, maybe that's the advantage that you have now, Saskia, within Paradigm, that you've done a number of these archives, that you have your processes, you have your I had to figure out everything myself, more or less. Yeah. So I just wish that, that there wasn't those lists, or we've done this before and this works. I had to improve on processes because we were scaling up. What they'd done in the past wasn't of the same scale, and we were scaling up. So I had to come with new checks, everything. So I think working, either working with someone like Paradigm, or having someone who is doing the same and to be able to share experiences. I wish maybe that in retrospect would have made things a lot easier. Mm. Yeah.
I can say though, I mean, we have digitized a lot of archives, but every archive is very different. So we can build upon what we did for the previous project, but we always have to look at every new project with a fresh eye, and new things come our way as well, like the European Accessibility Act and the American Disability Act, that have to be considered as well. But it's definitely something that we go easier with every project that we do.
Yeah,
it gets a little easier every time.
I think I would also say before this, Brill had sometimes just digitized the whole book series. I mean, you don't always need to just think to yourself, I'm going to digitize my whole backlist. You can divide it up like Brill did, to do the Brill Book Archive 1 from 2006 till 2000, and then do the previous one. You can also just think to yourself, you know what? I think there is really money in digitizing this book series, and then you digitize that book series.
Yeah.
There isn't any rule that you have to do it all.
Yeah. Yeah,
and Brill had done that in the past.
Yeah.
They digitized
Yeah.
a few book series.
Yeah, that's almost everybody. All the larger publishers that started digitizing a bit earlier, that's the way it started. When you had requests, could this possibly, this book series that you have, or this discipline where you're the leader, could you possibly digitize that first? Because we would absolutely like to have that in digital form in our library. So it was much more generated by librarians coming and saying, oh my goodness, we'd love to have this in a digital, it's out of print. We'd love to have this in a digital format. Is there any way you could, make that happen? And this is, we're talking a long time ago.
If you were to and if you were to approach it that way, slowly but surely, you would, get to a more and more digitized backlist. I'm just saying it's not always everything or nothing. You can also approach it as a partly digitization project. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there are no more further questions, I hope I haven't prevented anybody from asking questions, but I think we've had enough time. Unless there are any other comments the panelists would like to make.
Yeah, there's one comment that I would like to make, because we showed it briefly, the last slide on
the conferences. Yes.
We are present at 2 conferences. And it's loading for me still.
Yes.
Not sure if you're able to see it yet.
Yes.
There
now.
it is.
No. Go up one, please. Yeah.
There it is. So the ALA in Chicago this month, June, and so in a little over 2 weeks, we'll be present at that one. And we're also present at the Liber conference in Trondheim in Norway from the 1st of July to the 3rd of July, which is where I will also be personally together with my colleague, and our US colleagues are present at the ALA. So please do reach out to us if you want to meet up at either one of these conferences, or if you just want to have a chat with us in a video call. That's also fine.
Great. Okay, on that note, I will thank everybody for joining us today. I'll thank the panelists, Katinka and Saskia. Thank you very much. I will thank Magda for organizing everything for us and drawing attention to the webinar. And again, as Saskia said, if you would like to contact us to discuss projects or just have a chat about what you're working on, please do so. And until we have the next webinar, good luck, stay healthy, and goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.